Back in May, Bricktactical released their custom molded Mandalorian helmets, which are reminiscent of those classic Star Wars pieces used for the original Boba Fett, as well as the original Jango Fett figures. They're not an exact match, but they are very close. I talked about in my review how useful these parts are going to be for painting or modifying to make your own Star Wars characters. And today we're going to be taking a look at the first set of custom printed minifigures, though, that use these helmets, with 5 different Mandalorians by Classic Minifigs. In addition to the figures, I also got this sticker sheet with a sticker for each of the different figures, one being the Beskar Mando, and 2 different variants of Boba Fett, a Book of Boba Fett version of the character, and a Cloud City Boba Fett style Jango Fett. Excited to take a closer look at all of these, and let's get into the review. Starting off with one of the more basic figures is the concept art Mando that is white. All of these figures are just going to have the generic Classic Minifigs card inside of the packaging. These are pad printed just like Lego. Let's pull this out and check it out on my stand. I've done some reviews on their figures before, and this is probably going to be pretty brief. They'll just have the printing on the front, and since they're Mando figures, just a black head like the older figures had. The torso on this is very accurate. It is closer to the Jango Fett armor, actually. It looks like it's missing some of the creases at the bottom of the armor, but that would be where the belt is. And, looking at the leg printing, definitely isn't my favorite. Maybe it is copying what was on the Cloud City Boba Fett, but those knee pads just look a little off. The white for this figure is nice, but honestly, it's just one color printed on here, so it is a little bit boring. But if you're interested in a classic prototype Boba Fett like this one, this is a good option for a pretty decent price. Moving on to the next figure is their Arena Boba Fett. I think this is an expanded universe figure, and I love the scratches that are silver on the armor. That looks really cool. I'm noticing that the legs are a little loose on this one, though, which is a bit unfortunate, especially when there is the printing on them. You can't just swap them out. But this black helmet is great because it matches the sheen of the torso and the legs, where a 3D printed version wouldn't really work like that. And again, nothing on the back, nothing on the head, which is perfect for a character like this with the jetpack that just covers it anyway. And I'll say, maybe with that white one, I was complaining about the pouches a little too much. And it could really just be because the white and the black is such a high contrast that just sticks out a little bit more. I think the gray and the black just ends up looking a little bit better. And you can see that these do have some reuse, both the scratches, it is completely different. Also the different little emblem on the top of the armor as well. So it's nice to see that they are not completely unique, but do have different parts that are special to each figure. And for these 2 figures, I think one complaint I would have is that there are no accessories. It'd be nice to get anything, even if it was just like a older Lego gun. But this is really cool, and we'll move on to the next one of the figures. Their next one being Beskar Mando here. You can see that this one features an accessory being the silver Lego spear, which is nice and works for the Beskar spear that was in the show. Also has a cape, and it is a thicker material. It's not an official Lego cape, but still looks pretty good. And the torso and legs are dark brown. And it's too bad because they had misprints of this figure that were in a lighter brown, and I wish I would have noticed that and I would have picked up that version. Just because when it's on this darker plastic, it's a little bit harder to see some of the details, and I don't know, the contrast just isn't as great. You can see the nice shine on their silver printing, so that's nice to see. And an interesting detail is that the knee pad for this one is in that dark blue. And I looked at some reference images, and that's actually accurate. I would have thought that it would have just been gray or more silver, but that's a nice little detail. It even features some additional little printing towards the chin area. It's a little hard to pick up on camera and might look a little incomplete without more coloring, but if they're going for that more classic style, it makes sense. But there's a little bit more to this figure, so I'll throw that on quick. And that's an extra head for this character, being a yellow Pedro Pascal styled head. does have that very old Star Wars look, so it'll just have the black pupils, a little bit of facial hair, and I don't mind this too much just because I'll always have the mask on anyway, but it's nice to have an option for people that want something that is yellow and older, but for me, not necessarily my favorite, but good for people that do want this. Let's move on to the next one. This is going to be their Mando Season 2 Book of Boba Fett style Boba Fett, which features the first printed mask out of all these figures, and I'm very impressed with the alignment and the coloring on it. This is where having that older Boba Fett figure is going to come in handy for actually doing some comparisons. You can see they did a better job of laying down some color than LEGO originally did. One area that is missing is that LEGO was able to print a little bit more of the silver on the rangefinder, and the little triangles are a bit smaller on the LEGO version, but they still got all those yellow lines on the side there and the silver on that rounder part, so that's great to see. And again, with that torso, very similar to the old LEGO one, but not perfectly accurate, so it'll stand out on its own. And if it came out that they printed something a little closer to the original Boba Fett colors, it wouldn't be easy to try and sell as a real version. You'd be able to spot some differences. I'd say this is probably my favorite belt out of all the figures so far. That gold for the belt buckle, and then also the pouches and ammo looks really great on this. And having that color underneath the knee pads works to its advantage. Having a little bit of yellow works great and makes it look a little bit better. And getting these printed helmets was one of the things that I'm the most excited about for these new helmets made by Bricktactical. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and this is a great example of that. Like the other ones, no back or head printing, but this one also comes with another head, which is on the same color of head as the modern Clone Troopers. And Classic Minifigs sells these faces as Clone Trooper heads, so it has the same face printing, but extra scarring to match Boba Fett's from his appearances in the shows. So that's a nice little extra detail and adds a little bit of continuity to their previous releases. The Bricktactical gun here works pretty well, and there's a lot of different custom options for this gun, so you could swap it out with different brands if you really wanted to. Let's move on to the last figure, which I'm most excited for. And this figure is going to be their classic Jango Fett. And this is an amazing figure. The printing on the helmet is perfect. I'm actually lucky enough to have the original of this figure, so I can give you a comparison. But just look how much cleaner their print job is again, just like on the Boba Fett figure I just showed off. And it looks like the printing on the rangefinder is going to be basically the exact same. So this is where their printing is going to really come into play and be a really great alternative. Same goes for the torso, where it is basically the same, but it'll be on the newer gray colors, and the legs and arms are going to be sand blue instead of the older violet. It's wielding two different Bricktactical guns. I've noticed that they don't have the best grip on them, so that's something to keep in mind. And I'll just quick throw those guns back on. I'll have one that's brick arms, and I'll definitely say that the brick arms version is much better. You can see that you can actually kind of mess around with it. It doesn't just fall off. And the proportions are a little bit better. You know, this one seems a little bit too long, way too much handle. Where you can see this one just fits a little bit better in minifigure scale. It's nice to have that extra leg printing, and that stands out. Same with the belt, which has been on a couple of different figures. And let's just check. Nothing on the torso and the base head. But with all of the details you can see here, let's throw on the last couple of accessories, which I'm very excited to show off, which is a flesh printed head, as well as this poncho. I think the fabric is supposed to be kind of dark blue, but comes off as black, but I could also be wrong. Maybe it is just black. You can see that it kind of flops out, so you kind of need to crease it a bit to have it lay down more naturally. This head is a really cool piece to get because it is kind of a copy of the original one, where it had black on one side and then the yellow sort of mask on the other. So it has a different printing and is in updated color, so that's cool to see. And again, this figure is just a really great alternative if you can't afford the actual Jango Fett figure, which goes for over $100. Plus this one comes with the extra poncho and a hairpiece, which is different than the other figures we looked at. You know, the Mando came with a hairpiece and Boba Fett's bald, but this piece is newer and a little bit harder to get, so it's nice to have that as an addition. And I can't praise this figure enough. Really great. And I can't wait to see what other people do with the Bricktactical helmets, because these are some really great offerings. I definitely recommend them. Let's move on to the final verdict. After taking a look at all these custom figures, I think it's pretty safe to say that these are a great use of the new Bricktactical helmets and fit in perfectly with those older figures and are a great addition to your collection if you're missing some of them, like that Jango Fett. I think this is the best figure out of the new release. You know, I did mention that those blasters might not be my favorite and the Brick Arms ones might be better if you can upgrade them. And really my only complaint is that these two figures didn't get any additional accessories. Maybe that kept the cost down for these ones. We'll say that the extra detail on this one is very appreciated. Versus the white one, you know, the black printing on the white sticks out a bit. And this black one has the issues with the loose legs, which you're kind of seeing as it's tipping over. I also think it's nice to see the different variety of colors and different eras of characters with, you know, some Mandalorian, other Star Wars shows, but also goes back to some of the Clone Wars characters like Jango and different extended universe, non-canon type appearances with these two Boba Fett armors. If you're a fan of Mandalorian style characters and just want more cool custom Star Wars figures, these are going to be great options. And the prices for these are very reasonable. And you get a pretty decent value with some of these having those additional accessories and extra heads. So if you get the chance, definitely check out Classic Minifigs and get some of these. And if you want to see more custom LEGO reviews or custom builds, check out everything on my channel. I've been Brick I'll see you in the next video.